afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you Jenny LeClue-Detectivu for the Nintendo Switch. I really love detective games, but Jenny LeClue was always one of the pricier ones on the eShop. I didn't want to have to spend a whole lot of money on something that could have potentially been awful. Thankfully, the Wii Viewer reviewed this game, and I thought, well, if he really likes it, then I ought to give it a try too. And it happened to be on sale for about $4. And I said, okay, well, for that price, I can definitely get it. And I'd like to say that I was satisfied with the writing, but dissatisfied with everything else. So the titular character, Jenny LeClue, is an aspiring young detective who wants to be taken seriously despite the fact that she's only a kid, because she has a very logical and analytical brain, but as a result also has trouble with social cues. It seems like all the geniuses have trouble with basic social interactions. So it's sort of a catch-22 where Jenny is so smart, but yet she's not smart when it comes to interacting with people. You play in a side-scrolling format where you check to see if anything is suspicious or off, and then you press the A button to get a closer look. Sometimes you'll have to pull out Jenny's magnifying glass to look at something even deeper. More often than not, this was more annoying than it was helpful, as a lot of times when I would be trying to examine something because I was looking for a clue at the crime scene, it would end up just having an optional collectible to unlock different art in the gallery menu. And if you're not the type that really likes art, it's almost as if the game is trying to push you to be a completionist. You can also get various stickers, which I guess are similar to art, but I think the primary purpose of the stickers is to decorate Jenny's notebook, which I'm not a DIY person, so I definitely didn't test that feature. Thankfully, decorating is optional, and so are the gallery pieces, but I definitely wish that maybe they were a bit more well hidden. I know you can only do so much in a side-scrolling format, but maybe if the areas had branching pathways, where if you went on those branching paths, then that would help you find the collectibles. Or if the game had like an arrow indicator saying, go this way to continue the main story, like they do in Xenoblade Chronicles, but go this way if you want to explore. Occasionally, Jenny will come across cases where she'll either have to interrogate a person or she'll have to collect enough clues to proceed further. After you've collected enough clues, then you'll enter this deductive mini-game where you'll try to find the 2 or 3 clues that are all related to each other and what answer the question. These are really entertaining because once you get the answer right, you'll hold down the A button to see Jenny's thought process and how she's collecting the dots. Jenny herself is a really well-written protagonist. I loved just about every minute Jenny was on the screen, and I really appreciate how the game does a good job of balancing her personality traits, so that at times she seems like an incredible character, but she also has plenty of character flaws and moments where she improves. And so she doesn't feel one-dimensional at all. She feels like she's a real character with real motivations and real problems, which is the sign of a well-written character. That they have problems, but they also learn to grow through them as the narrative progresses. Generally speaking, that was the best part of the whole game, was the writing. In fact, not only does this game have spectacular writing, but it's also fully voiced. The only exceptions I could think of were every now and then when something was describing the environment, it wouldn't be voiced. But overall, every single line of dialogue is immaculately performed. And from what I've heard, there are some pretty top-notch voice actors. I think they even got Christopher Lloyd, but I'm not sure because the credits tend to move really, really fast. Overall, I think the voice acting is what made the game even more entertaining than it already was. And if you want to watch it as though it's a movie, you even have the option for the subtitles to be smaller and not have an obnoxious black border like the Ace Attorney games do, and that it'll autoplay so that you really do feel like you're watching a movie. The problem with Jenny LeClue is that the gameplay in between the talking is really kind of a pain. Sometimes it's really hard to get Jenny to do what you want to do when you're trying to do anything other than running. Sometimes Jenny just won't run, And a lot of times it makes sense in context. Like if she's trying to cross a tightrope, of course she's going to want to try to keep her balance. Sometimes the game just chugs even when she's running, so I wonder if that's just poor optimization or if the game's trying to make her run at a more realistic pace. Like if she's going up a hill, she's not going to be running at the same speed as though she's running down a hill, for example. But sometimes when you're making good game design, you don't want to be too realistic if that makes the game not fun. And Jenny, unfortunately, leans more into the not fun category. Also, there are times when there are puzzles to solve, and at first these puzzles are really clever. Sometimes they'll be Professor Layton style puzzles where you'll have to rotate an object at just the right angle to get a solution. Sometimes you'll have to examine everything in the environment. Sometimes you'll have to think outside the box. The problem with these puzzles is that there's no hint system. And a lot of times, not even Jenny's inner monologue will be enough to even tell you what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. If you've played Professor Layton games, you probably won't have any trouble with these puzzles, but if you haven't, be prepared to look up a lot of walkthroughs online. Another thing that bothers me about the puzzles is that a lot of them are repeated way too often. Puzzles that involve rotating discs into the right place appeared at least 9 different times with very little scenic variety. Also, there was a puzzle that involved connecting wires together to make lights turn on. That appeared at least 3 times. And overall, it made me groan whenever a puzzle showed up. The ones that were the most interesting were the ones that actually took place in the environment, as opposed to being self-contained puzzle sections like the Layton games. So in other words, I guess you could say whenever this game wasn't trying to be Layton and was just trying to tell a good story, it was fantastic. The writing was immaculate, and even though a couple of the scenarios felt far-fetched, that's also kind of the point because this game takes place within the universe of someone's manuscript. And so a lot of times the narrator will want to put his own spin on things because he's kind of a pacifist. And what's also funny about Jenny is that she's aware that she's in a manuscript, and so sometimes she'll argue with the narrator about how she will want to take the story in a different direction than his intention. So some of the silliness actually makes sense in that context, especially when Jenny breaks the fourth wall and the other characters are unaware of what she's doing. So, in conclusion, I think Jenny LeClue is a fantastic mystery that has plenty of suspense. And even though it starts out very small, that's more or less to show you the ropes of how to be a detective. And later on, the story keeps getting progressively darker and has more interesting scenarios where Jenny really feels like she's going on a huge adventure. Unfortunately, the in-between gameplay is bogged down by environments that a lot of times don't really have that creative of level design, too much artwork that's scattered when you're trying to find a clue, and repetitious puzzles. Some people might find this game to be okay in the gameplay department, but I personally found it intolerable. Another thing that felt like kind of a mixed bag is the way the game handles choices, because you have the option of choosing between 2 responses, sometimes 3 in some cases, and with only one exception, most of the choices don't really matter in the long run. Even if you do choose the wrong choice, Jenny will say something along the lines of, "What kind of an idiot would make a choice like that?" So essentially, they're just there if you want to sprinkle your own personality. Although sometimes the questions are also a bit more like Jenny's going to do what she wants to anyway, but you just have to choose the lesser of the 2 evils. Like for instance, you might have a choice between be mean or be very mean. Like, what about the people out there that want to be nice? What about the people out there that don't like Jenny's forceful personality and want her to be more kind and considerate to people? Thankfully, these situations are few and far between, and most of the time I felt like I had a good enough grasp on my choices, but I just wish that the decisions did more in the gameplay. The one problem I'll list with the story is that it leaves on a massive cliffhanger. A lot of the mysteries are very satisfyingly solved, but there's also a significant chunk of the game that's still left up to your imagination. The way the ending is structured is that it seems like it's going to be a Mass Effect style story where it'll carry over into a sequel, but as of now there hasn't been confirmation if a sequel's even in the works. The creators gave a little message saying no detective leaves a mystery unsolved, but that's pretty cryptic. I wish they were more direct, like saying stay tuned for Jenny LeClue 2. That also rhymes. Or something like that. But instead, we just have to keep guessing as to what their next project is. Overall, my feelings on Jenny LeClue were mixed. I liked the story and I loved the voice acting, but I didn't like actually playing it as a game. My recommendation is that you rent it to see if maybe you're more okay with this style of gameplay, or just watch a Let's Play. But actually playing it might be a bit of a pain or a repetitious draw for you. So with that, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or interrogations, please let me know in the comment section. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and let's hope I can get a really cool detective case coming up, because I used to love those old books in my childhood, and it would be nice if I could solve a case in real life. Bye!